Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Susan Cornell, and I am the Associate Director of Experiential Education and a Professor of Pharmacy Practice at Midwestern University College of Pharmacy in Downers Grove, Illinois. I'm also an alumnus of the College of Pharmacy, graduating a long time ago, and my specialty is diabetes practice. I've been practicing as a certified diabetes care and education specialist for over 25 years. I'm joined today by two very distinguished guests. So we have Dr. Anna Suwada, who is a 2011 graduate from the pharmacy program. Dr. Suwada is a board-certified pharmacotherapy specialist, and she's been practicing pharmacy in a variety of different practice settings for a few years. And she's also been involved during her school days, or her pharmacy school days. She's been involved in many associations, and she continues that involvement today as a practicing pharmacist. I'm also joined today by Nadia Salifu, who is now a third-year pharmacy student. Nadia just finished her second year. Congratulations, Nadia.
Thank you so much.
And we're so pleased to have you with us today and share your experience not only with pharmacy practice in terms of the didactic courses and rotations, but your involvement in associations and community service.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's just jump right into this and let's talk about it. So community service, and I'm going to start with you, Dr. Suwada. I know back when you were a student, which to me seems like yesterday, but of course for you, I know it probably feels years ago. So tell us, what did you do as a student?
I think for me as a student, I was focused on my studies, didactics, but I was also focused on making those connections and networking because I knew that once I graduate, it's not the end. With yourself, of course, being an excellent mentor, I value your input on all of my studies and as well as how I've progressed because through those relationships, I don't think I could have been here without that.
So with that, tell us a little bit more about your career path since you've graduated.
Yeah, and I would call myself a non-traditional grad because I graduated from Midwestern University with my Pharm.D. I actually started working as a pharmacy technician at a local grocery chain while I was in high school. And I also started working in the hospital as a technician during pharmacy school. And I really found a passion for hospital medicine. And so I decided that that was my career path. And so when I graduated, I was fortunate to get a position in hospital. And I've been at that same hospital ever since I graduated, even though, as we know in the world, things shift, things change, mergers have happened and have dissolved. I stayed at that system for 15 years. And I'm happy to say that because of those experiences, I couldn't get to this new position that I actually just started recently. I did make the transition into industry, and I'm very excited because the experiences have led me, and I just feel the growth is potential.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, you've done so much, and congratulations on a great career. So, kind of switching a little bit and talking about associations and what pharmacy associations, whether it be as a student or a practitioner, what does it bring to you? And so, Nadia, tell us, you're very involved in various associations. So let's start out with what associations are you involved in?
So I'm involved in APHA. There's a sector of APHA known as Operation Diabetes, which runs a clinic locally called MTM Chat. They have various clinics throughout the Chicagoland area, a couple in Bolingbrook, there used to be one in Joliet, but now it's only in Bolingbrook and Naperville. I'm currently at the Bolingbrook site. So every first and third Wednesday, we run sort of an ambulatory care style clinic where we provide point of care testing as well as asking patients about questions and concerns that they may have on any of their chronic medications. Typically, the disease states that we see most commonly are diabetes and hypertension. Sometimes we'll see some other unique disease states, but those typically tend to be the main ones. So that's what I've been working on. I've been doing it for about a year. My P1 year, I actually was just a volunteer, and I loved it so much that I decided to join and become an elect. And now I help run the clinic with a few other students as well. So it's been a really great opportunity. And I just got a new position as vice president for CPNP. And they have a program called the Morning Star Mission, where every other month they go to Morning Star, which is in Joliet, and help provide mental health care to people in the area. I do a lot of behind the scenes work. So there's the adult section of it, and then there's also a kids section with the kids activities. So I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work, helping out with making new kids activities and just finding new ways to keep people informed on mental health. And it's great because a lot of the community is people of color, and I focus a lot of my efforts on supporting people of color, especially in healthcare, because cultural competency is a very important thing to me. But I'm also involved in things that aren't also like community service related. I was on the e-board for Phi Delta Chi Pharmacy Fraternity, as well as helping out with SNAFA, which also looks at like helping minorities in the area, but we don't have any volunteer related activities yet, but I hope to change that in the future.
That's wonderful. Good. Congratulations.
That's great.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Suwada, how about you? I know you were involved in different community outreach or giving back to the profession. So tell us more about that.
Similar to you, I'm Polish. So for me, it's very important to participate in our community, as well as the language barriers and such. And so I participate in an organization called PAPA, which is the Polish American Pharmacists Association. And so we do volunteer activities. After church, we'll do blood pressures and diabetes counseling. And that's something that I do enjoy to do on this side. But in order to stay up top on all the different changes that are happening, what I quickly learned is that school teaches you a foundation, but as you graduate, you really have to keep up with the changes that happen on a second to second basis. So I found the best way to learn is through forums, through groups. So I'm actually a member of ACCP, which is American College of Clinical Pharmacy, ASHP, still maintain membership with them, and then also ICHP, which is the Illinois chapter. So I feel like through those organizations, I've met people. You know, we talk, we discuss problems and protocols. And I think even through social media now, you just connect with people, even through Facebook forums. I mean, it's really amazing what you can learn just from your colleagues.
Yeah. I think you bring up such a valuable point. You know, it's this networking connection. And, you know, we often say pharmacy is a small world. And we meet people and we're connected through people, but it really is. It really truly is a small world. It's very interesting, too, how the organizations will support pharmacists, not only to keep that continuing education going, but even for the community outreach and reaching, you know, people in need. And I think the disparity is something that a lot of folks don't know about. You know, there's so much disparity out there, and we take it for granted that, oh, you know, we have our medicine, we have our doctor, but some people don't, and they don't have access to that. So providing that care, I think, is just so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, kind of building off of that, you know, what is a story? Like, what is one of your favorite stories of something you experienced in volunteering in community service?
You know, I think for me, to touch on what you said, the disparity, we have to remember that as healthcare professionals, we're very knowledgeable and we know a lot, but we have to know how to translate that to our community. Because even looking at my family, even looking at my friends, you know, I could give them a whole lecture on anticoagulation, but it wouldn't matter because we really need to break it down so that we understand and that the people we're talking to understand. So the disparity, not even cost finance-wise of medications and how expensive they are, right? But trying to justify to a patient that, yes, this might cost you $50 a month, but this is why you should take it and why this is so important down the line, right? And so a story, I think, is, again, cultural. You know, for us, language barriers are very, very relevant. And so I'm lucky that I'm fluent in Polish. And so I'm able to then mimic and leverage those, you know, skills and, you know, just with family, you know, at the table during the holidays, we'll have a brown bag session of medication review, or I'll get texts, you know, from friends and cousins saying, hey, I know you know this. Can you help me out? And of course, as a healthcare professional, it's always in confidence. So they know that they can come to me and I'll be able to break it down and just make it easier. I think that's what drives me to keep doing what I do.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I laugh, I chuckle at this because, holidays in a healthcare professional's household is basically a work day, you know, because everybody comes to you and want free help, which of course we're always happy to give. So how about you, Nadia? Like, what's one of your favorite stories of community service?
I would say, I don't know if I have a particular story, but again, just like the MTM experience, every day or every time I'm there, it's a little bit different, but also we tend to see a lot of the same patients. We have translators because a lot of the people that we help are of the Spanish-speaking community. And we were speaking to a patient about changing one of her medications, and one of our translators, she is Puerto Rican, and she was talking to me about how, like, within like cultures, there's a hindrance about change, and especially when it comes to changing medications or making changes. So in terms of it being a fun story, I'd say it's more of an insightful story because it makes you realize even those little things that you don't think about when it comes to cultural competency. Like, there's definitely the language component. The translators have told me, like, sometimes certain medical terms don't always translate very cleanly from English to another language. I'm sure that's very true with Polish. So there's that. But then there's also, like, the cultural understanding about, like, medicine and, like, what medicine means to them. So you also have to look at things from, like, the holistic perspective. You know, obviously from school, we have, like, the clinical-based knowledge, we have the evidence-based medicine, but we also need to take into account people's lived experiences as well. So
we have to consider what their wants and their needs are and their beliefs. And oftentimes, sometimes they believe there's always a natural method or natural way to fix this, opposed to, I don't want to take a medicine. And we have to respect that. We have to respect what the person wants. Yes.
And we really need to be better as healthcare professionals and all healthcare professionals to listen first and to understand the situation. Because there are a lot of people right now that can't afford medications and really need to know, what do I have to take and really what's an option, right? And so I think, for me, one of the opportunities we have as pharmacists and also with physicians, having those relationships, right? Building on those relationships, because a lot of patients really go to their physicians for a lot of this, right? And so we are such a wealth of knowledge that I wish we could just impart more of that.
Yeah. And, you bring up a good point of working as a team, working with other healthcare professionals, but also the person that we're dealing with, the patient and their family or their support system. And, during the COVID pandemic, pharmacists and what we do really came to the forefront. We were on center stage on TV half the time, and, there was a lot of work for many of us. And Dr. Suwada, you were in the hospital at that time. Can you share your experience?
Yeah, and this is an interesting story because I became the clinical coordinator over the 4 hospitals that I served at a month right before everything started. And I couldn't have done my job without the team and the pharmacists at those 4 hospitals and the managers and directors. But just a story, just to give you kind of an idea of how this worked, things were coming in every time. I was up at 4 a.m. reading Chinese articles, right? Try to figure out what's the next drug, what's the next thing I need to order, anticipate. And it was a lot of prediction because we didn't know what to expect. But I think the greatest part about our job as a pharmacist is we were in the background the whole time. We credit our nurses to be at the bedside. The physicians were at the bedside having to deal with the PPE and all of that. But in pharmacy, we were struggling with, we're now seeing double patient folds coming in. Our drugs are running out the shelves. We need to make sure we don't run out for these patients. The ICUs were very busy. How do we make sure we don't run out of drug, right? So all of us worked 24/7, 365, but I think we learned how to work together as a group, not only just as a local hospital, but as a whole system, which I think I'll never forget that. That's something I'll take with me.
That's wonderful. And it is just showing how, again, we work together. Nadia, how about you? What's a story during the COVID pandemic that you noticed or want to share?
Well, I started MTM around, I would say towards the latter end of the peak of COVID. So we had a very in and out influx of patients. Some weeks we would have no one. Sometimes we'd have a lot of people. And I think that was just reflective of the fact that it was a lot harder for people to get care during COVID. A lot of doctors' offices were either flooded or closed. It was harder to get appointments. So a lot of people were neglecting that care. So when people were coming in, it was coming in with the impression of, I haven't been able to see my doctor in sometimes over a year. What can I do, at least in the meantime, to help manage my diabetes, my hypertension, et cetera, just to make sure things were on track. And we also have PAs that we work with at MTM, so we're working with them collaboratively. Again, I think that most people have certain perceptions about pharmacists and the career path about just being in the community, but there's a lot of different work you can do. And I think even just working at the Bolingbrook Clinic, a lot of the volunteers as well as the PAs and nurse practitioners that we work with have kind of gotten a different perspective of, wow, there's so many things that pharmacists and pharmacy students can do to really contribute to healthcare, especially in such uncertain times like this pandemic. So
wonderful. Well, the work you guys are doing is just fabulous. So, as we wrap up, I just want to ask kind of a fun question here. So going back to days in pharmacy school for you and currently, what was, you're busy studying, you have exams. What's your go-to tool? I should say, a pen, a pencil, a laptop.
So when I graduated, we didn't really have iPads yet. So I am the traditional binder highlighter kind of girl. Mm-hmm. Now, when I study or when I review materials, it's basically PDFs and highlighting on PDFs. But
so can't let go of that highlighter.
Nope, needs to be highlighted, even though I don't know what it does when the whole page is highlighted. But that's my go-to.
That's great. Great. How about you, Nadia?
Well, I'm on the flip side. So I do own an iPad, but I still write half of my notes because I try not to look at screens too much. So I have like a purple binder specifically for all my therapeutics, and I have a black 0.5 lined pen that's like my go-to, and I color code and highlight. Yep. That's my go-to. I'm very old school when it comes to studying. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. So still, the stylist or the pen.
Muscle memory.
Yeah. How about yours, Dr. Cornell?
Yeah. So, I'm a highlighter. I must say I'm a highlighter too. And I still have to sometimes print an article and highlight over it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. I appreciate that.
Great conversation. Nice to meet you.
You as well. Thank you.
Good luck on your future career.
Thank you.
If you'd like more information about the College of Pharmacy at Midwestern University, please visit our website. Thank you for your time and have a great day.